All right then, guys, welcome back. We've got round 8, and do you know what round 8 means? It means we're getting into winning in territory for day 2. These games really, really matter. This is where the players that have won, really good records can try and pole vault themselves into day 2. And I'm very delighted to be joined by the one and only Ross Gilbert for this round. Ross, how are we?
I'm pretty good. I mean, the weather in Italy has taken a turn, I'll be honest with you, Shay. Yesterday, it was absolute bright sunshine. Today, the rain is coming down, and that's what some of these players are going to think. You're going to win this winning in, you're going to be in that bright sunshine. If you lose a winning in, you're going to feel like the rain clouds are coming in. It's not the final round. There's still one more round to go, but this is the point in that tournament where players really need to start getting those wins, booking their place in day 2. There's no limit. You get your 6 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses, or better record. You're in day 2.
And that is where day 2, if you're pushing for those top 8 placements, if you need an X amount of CP to get to your invite, first of all, day 2 is almost a necessity, and then you start pushing for, top 16, top 32s, top 8s, top 4s. If you want to win it all, you have to get into day 2 first. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So these rounds are going to be terribly impactful. And quite honestly, I cannot wait to get started.
No, this one's going to be a very, very interesting one. We've got a couple of players who really need to go and get their wins. And like we said, this is kind of like last chance saloon. Now, some players are actually making their way over to North American Internationals, but in terms of your big regional level events with big points payouts, this is the last one we have got in Europe for the season. Now, we've got Brennan Cameron here, who is going to be playing a Lost Box deck, and here we see our other player. We've got Kim Pabega, and we see top 4 in Bochum, top 8 in Liverpool, top 64 in Berlin at the EUIC, and in London at the EUIC, as well as a top 32 in Bremen. There's a lot of really good achievements there, and we're actually going to be seeing a Gardevoir played there as we introduce the opponent.
And Brennan needs no introduction, absolute titan in the EU scene. The finalist in Bochum, top 4 Malmo, finalist Liverpool, top 16, another Liverpool, and a top 16 Lille as well. Top 22 place is pretty much confirmed. And what I like about Brennan, he's going to take some risk. He says, I'm here to win these events now. There's no reason for me to be aiming for day 2s. I want to win. So he's playing a Lost Box variant there as well. This, make no doubt about it, folks at home, is a clash of titans here.
Yeah, we've got 2 good players with a lot of accomplishments, and like you say, some of these players who are on these top 22 runs are actually so close to getting their top 22 that actually there's no real point in playing in these events anymore. Like Stefan Ivanov doesn't, I don't think, need to play in this tournament this weekend for the points, but it's partly love of the game, and it's partly just trying to get that big finish. So it looks like we've got a mulligan from Brennan here, going to start with an extra card, but no is going to start the game, so Brennan gets the mulligan. And it looks like we are rolling here. So we've got the Manaphy, not your preferred starter, honestly, especially against a Gardevoir deck that, quite frankly, is not trying to hit the bench. So Brennan starts off with a Nest Ball, going to get a better Pokemon.
Yeah, Manaphy's interesting because it's almost like a necessity for these Lost Box decks. We haven't got a choice but to play. I've even seen some lists play as high as 2 Manaphys. But in the matchups where you don't need it, it is a very big liability. Leading that there is just awkward for Brendan. But when we look at Brendan's list, he's playing that sort of turbo variant there. So you've got access to things like Raikou, Dragonite V, Drapion as well, which can actually be used with Mirage Gauge because you can attack with Dynamic Tail with 4 energies, with 190 times 2 for weakness. Guide, he's weak to dark, so we might actually see it. Speaking of a V Pokemon, though, we do see Dragonite V come down with the Forest Seal Stone, Star Alchemy activation for probably a VIP Battle Pass. Pretty good turn 1.
Not bad at all, and that's a kind of weird thing. Dragonite is not really a turn 1 kind of card. It comes later when you've got Mirage Gate on board, you can go and get big KOs, but of course you need a Pokemon V to pop the Forest Seal Stone on so you can use that V-Star power to search out any card. So you pop it down, you pop the Forest Seal Stone on, and turn 1, Yeah, it's the Battle VIP pass. Perfect? No, you'd rather be saving Forest Seal Stone for later in the game, but it's not bad if you can get rolling nice and early with it. We've got a double Comfey, and now we're going to start selecting some of those lovely, lovely flowers.
And oh, look, we do see the Drapion there. Definitely a decision for Brennan. Oh, with a VIP battle pass, though. So, like I said, yeah, you could use Drapion in this matchup, but you also need to set up to win the game. So, Brennan making the decision of saying, I can win this game without Drapion. It might be nice, but I can do it. How about we get set up instead? Here comes Greninja.
That is something I'm going to be watching as we go through the game, because Drapion is a darkness-type Pokemon that attacks for colorless energy. Gardevoir is a very large Pokemon with 310 HP and a weakness to darkness. So, and don't get me wrong, I think on this turn you had to go Battle VIP pass because you need to get set up. But losing that Drapion, it's an unfortunate thing we see with flower selecting far too often.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a point later in the game where Drapion would be absolutely fun to go for. But unfortunately, not an issue at the moment. Mirage Gate is going to have to wait onto the Drapion. Let's just get set up. And actually, yeah, we've got a couple of Comfey, we've got the Greninja, we've got that Dragonite down, so not a terrible start.
All things considered, and I believe we did see the Drapion get used against Gardevoir in the EUIC final, Ross, didn't we? We saw Alex Trinity Nova to it, so, you know, a different method of energy acceleration. But as long as you can satisfy 400, it really doesn't matter how you get there. As long as you get there, you are hitting for that dark weakness. Here we see a Lost Vacuum, getting rid of a Forest Seal Stone as well. So that Lost Zone counter getting up to, 4, I believe. Turn 1 going first. That is a very good number. But is over to Kim. Obviously, both players on that 5-1-1 record. Would love to get this win here. Let's see what Kim can do.
Yeah, a bit of a shame Brennan wasn't able to get the Crammer. It does play it as a one-off, but unfortunately not able to find it last turn. So Kim doesn't take that damage onto the Zacian, which actually would have left it in Sableye range, so could have been genuinely relevant. For Kim, it's nice and easy. You're playing a Gardevoir deck. You need routes. This turn, you need as many routes as you can get your hands on. There's other cards in the deck, but really here, you want routes. You want to make sure that you've got as many routes as possible, because not only is Gardevoir your main attacker here, but also Curly is your draw engine. So you want to be getting as many routes down as you can. Levelball's going to get 1. Let's hope there's some options for more, but we actually see a Manaphy chosen by Kim. Brennan had to start with it. Kim's chosen it.
Yeah, I guess, you know, Manaphy can really deny any Moonlight Shurikens. I guess one reason why Brennan didn't put down the Cramorant is because it was his first turn going first, so he wouldn't have been able to see a spit innocently, as good as it would have been. But yeah, Manaphy coming down is, you know, good because we forget how good Greninja is when it's attacking. Its ability is insane, is really good, I should say, for letting you discard energy and draw 2. Moonlight Shuriken, I would argue, is equally strong, letting you do 90 to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, or any Pokemon I should say. That is a ridiculous number when your opponent's trying to set up to, multiple evolution lines.
Yeah, with 4 cards already in the Lost Zone, it's 1 Flower Selecting and 1 Colress's Experiment. You're already at 7, turning on that Mirage Gate. So absolutely, Brennan is going to be looking for that next turn. Now, we do see a boss's orders onto the Dragonite. We're not going to see a big KO here. What we are going to see is an awkward Pokemon to get out the active. And all we're going to see from Kim here is just using Zacian's ability, Roar of the Sword, to just go and get an extra energy. It does end your turn, but Kim wasn't going to be attacking anyway. What is crucial here, there are 2 routes down. Now, the good news for it is that Brennan is not going to be able to double Sableye, because you need Hawlucha to use Sableye to KO both the routes, and there's no Hawlucha in Brennan's list.
Yeah, that would be the wonder turn if you could get a Hawlucha plus Sableye, but like you said, there is no Hawlucha, no access to that. Really intrigued to see how this works. We do see that Dragonite swiftly get moved to the bench. We could see Dragon Gale for a KO here. That does work. However, we did see that 20 damage from Dragon Gale can add up. That would mean that Cresselia's Moonglow Reverse would not need as many energy or damage in play to start taking KO. So that could be a little interesting wrinkle to keep an eye on if Dragon Gale does get used here.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Brennan, really, there's a few different ways you can go here. Taking out the Zacian is obviously a good thing, because that's worth 2 prizes. Going after the routes is always a good thing. When Gardevoir gets set up, it's rolling. So there's only 2 routes down. There's a possibility here that Brennan could potentially start targeting down those routes. And if he could take, you know, a KO this turn and then a KO next turn, all it would take is Kim to have a slightly poor draw, and then all of a sudden they are going down. And I mean, if I'm Brennan here, I would love an escape rope. Because you either get a Rouse or more likely can See, it's awkward. Either you feed really a Rouse or you put the Manaphy up. But if you put the Manaphy up, then next turn, Brennan can go and get a double KO with Greninja. There is no good option off of an escape rope. So we've already seen that. Oh, now we've seen the Cramorant coming down, but there's no escape rope. The damage is good, but escape rope would have been better there if Brennan could have found it.
Well, speaking of Cresselia, there it is. Escape rope would have been really strong, like you said. Giving up the Manaphy means you force a Miriam plus drawback into Manaphy. Probably not going to happen. And then you can start using Moonlight Shuriken. Kim researched that into a fantastic, and I think I see 2 Curliers off the bat. We see Greninja, we see a Fog Crystal, which can find either a basic Psychic Pokemon or a basic Psychic Energy. Probably Energy, so you can discard it with Refinement, and Kim is going to get rolled into the game. But that is the one downside to the Gardevoir deck. You do normally, under normal circumstances, have to give up the first couple turns of the game with offensive pressure to get set up. But when you do get rolling, it can get out of hand.
Yeah, that's why I like going after those routes. When I'm playing against Greninja, when I'm playing against Gardevoir, sorry, that is generally my plan early game. I want to try and target down those routes as much as I can. But for Kim, yeah, you've nailed it. There's a lot of options here. There's the first Curlier. That is, of course, going to let you discard a card from your hand to draw 2. That's a very good thing. Battle VIP Pass, fantastic candidate for doing so because it's literally useless at this stage. Then you've got an energy there which could be used with Greninja if Greninja comes down. So, there's going to be a lot of drawing cards. It's what Gardevoir does. It draws a lot of cards, and Kim is setting up to draw a bunch of cards.
If you think about it, right, Kim started a turn with a research, that's +7. And then Curliers using Refinement, so what's that, 9. Evolve again to another Curlier, 11. Concealed cards, 13. There's 13 cards this turn, and it's turn 2. Like, when you actually sit down and do the math, that's a ridiculous number to be drawing.
Yeah, it is absolutely silly sometimes what these Gardevoir decks can do. And quietly, that Zacian's now got free energy on, which means Zacian is able to actually attack with Storm Slash. He's going to do 150, more than enough to KO a Cramorant. And sure, there's going to be a KO in return, but if Kim goes into his next turn, down by 1 prize, but kind of set up, I think that is I think most Gardevoir players would take that in a heartbeat. Disappointed to only see 1 route, and I know there is an Ultra Ball in hand, so I'm interested to see, what it is Kim doesn't want to lose. It is worth pointing out there's 2 rare candy in Kim's list, so those routes could be Gardevoir next turn.
This is very true. We just saw Brendan there go for the Pokestop and getting 0 hits, get rid of an Energy, a Colress, and a Forest Seal Stone. Pretty painful getting rid of a Colress there in this scenario. Colress would have been great. Maybe start working towards a Sableye, potentially. Let's see what Brennan can do. He does have a Colress in hand.
Oh, there we go. That's good.
So we can actually play a support as Brennan's first support of the game. Well, we see the Battle VIP Pass. That always gets sent to the Lost Zone.
That's an easy one.
And then, interesting decision there. All good options, good cards to keep. I think there's a use case for every single one of them. And definitely thinking about it. And this is the thing about Lost Box. Is that sure, it's easy to just pitch any cards into the Lost Zone, start swinging with Sableye. However, if you get rid of the wrong resources at the wrong times, it can really come back to bite you in the late game. Every decision is meticulous.
Yeah, it is going to be an awkward one here. It does look like we're losing a Mirage Gate, which is not a card you want to lose. But then we've got Pokemon there. We've got a supporter for next turn, and we just saw a Colress's Experiment hit the discard. So you don't want to then immediately put another one in the Lost Zone. You're going to find yourself running low on supporters if you do that. Brennan is now only 1 card away from actually activating Sableye, as we see an Energy Recycler coming down here. So we could see a Sableye, and then that's an awkward situation. Do you KO the Zacian, take the 2 prizes, but leave the Gardevoir pieces alone? Or do you let him have his attacker there in the Zacian while you start setting up KOs on some of those pieces? Maybe KO a Curlier while setting up a routes for next turn for a Sableye. It's an interesting discussion because actually Kim's done a great job of saying to Brennan, yeah, you basically want to KO everything on my board right now. Or do you even go after the Manaphy to try and open up some Greninja plays the following turn? There are lots of different options, but it looks like we're actually powering up a Dragonite here.
Yeah, it looks like going for the Dragonite for that Dragon Gale. I think Shred doesn't get the KO because I think Shred is 2 for 50. I'd like
2
to
for
say.
50, you are correct.
We're not going to see that. So it would be a Dragon Gale, which is 250 damage, but does do 20 damage to all of your bench Pokemon. And like I mentioned earlier, Kim just had that Cresselia, which is great for maneuvering damage around. And if you Dragon Gale, that means the Cresselia only needs 20 less damage to move around, start taking KO. So we do see a Dragon Gale. That's a big swing. 20 damage to all of Brennan's Pokemon and takes 2 prize cards. Going ahead in the prize race so far.
And I suppose the thinking here basically is, unless Kim has an absolutely monster turn with Gardevoir and energy in the discard and all sorts of other things, there's not really going to be a response here from Kim. So Brennan is going to be able to string these attacks together, get multiple turns of attacks potentially. But we do see that Cresselia coming up here. Cresselia moves 2 damage counters from each of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon for just a single energy. So what you really want to be doing is using Gardevoir to damage all of your own Pokemon by accelerating energy and then moving that onto the active, or you can just do free energy to do a straight 110. It works, but I don't think anything's going to be taken out that the Dragonite too quickly, unfortunately. So Kim's still in setup mode, and Brennan could be going, you know, 3 prizes taken very quickly.
Yeah, it's a real interesting scenario. Like, there is a world in which Brainwave does take the KO.
Oh, yes.
Which would be super advantageous. Kim has prized 1 copy of his Brainwave. Does play 2, though, so, you know, it shouldn't be too hard to find the other one, potentially. Failing that, we could see a Moongo reverse into, like, something like a Comfey. You know, just take a prize card in if try and force Brennan to attack with Dragon Gale again, put even more damage into play for yourself. Never a bad option. And when I first saw the Cresselia card from towards EUIC list, I thought, get that out. That's not very good. Let's wear out something else. And then the more I've been casting, you realize that Cresselia is a really strong card in the deck, actually, and it really puts the work in.
Yeah, it absolutely does. We saw it used by Tor to great effect at the EUIC. We've seen it on stream a few times now. It's a very, very good card coming out here. Now, Kim is using that Greninja, going and getting a couple of extra cards, which is fantastic. We're still not seeing a Gardevoir out there. We've got 2 Curlier, no Gardevoir. The Zacian has already gone down, so we're going to need to see some offensive pressure here before too long. If we don't see any offensive pressure from Kim, then Brennan is just going to run away with this game. Although, as you've mentioned, that bench damage from Dragonite does add up, so Brennan can't just keep attacking with Dragonite. He's actually going to board wipe himself. That's a bad thing. Yeah,
that's not something you want to do, is put in damage into play for your opponent. We know that Kim does have a Guardi EX in hand, so we will be able to see a Gardevoir EX come down, start doing some Psychic Embrace. But what I'm just intrigued to know is, are we going to see the Psychic Embrace target a Brainwave Gardevoir for a KO? Because that can happen. Or are we just going to see a Moonglow reverse into a Comfey? Not 100% sure. I believe a Brainwave KO would be the most advantageous, but it looks like it might not be possible. There's the Gardevoir EX hitting the board, so Psychic Embrace, then you grab a many amount of Psychic Energy from the discard pile, attach them to your Psychic Pokemon, and put 2 damage counts on that Pokemon for each energy. Ridiculous ability when you sit down and think about it.
Oh, yeah, and Kim had to be confident this was coming out, because again, you know, Cresselia went straight into the active. Moonglow reverse moves 2 damage counters from each of your Pokemon to one of your opponents. So it had to be the case. And this is kind of cool. You accelerate all that energy, and then you move it over to a Comfey, take a cheeky KO while leaving Cresselia in the active. Yeah. We're now even on prizes, but Kim is now starting to get set up. Those bigger Pokemon, those harder to KO Pokemon are coming out. And Brennan now, I mean, taking a prize isn't the issue, but it's keeping up the tempo and trying to make sure that you're taking the right prizes at the right time and just trying to actually challenge down the Gardevoir. And what I would love to see here is that Drapion getting ready to take down a Gardevoir, but as we know from right back at the beginning of the game, that is no longer an option.
Yeah, like we alluded to at the start of the game, Drapion would be perfect for one-shotting that Gardevoir EX on the bench. Outside of that, Brennan has no options of being able to remove a Guardi EX in one play, so that is no longer an option. And like you said, swinging with Dragon Gale is very tough. You don't really want to be doing that. It's going to be damaging your own Pokemon. Ideally, we will start swinging with a Sableye. Do you have a switching card, though? Because Dragonite has a 3 retreat card. That's very costly to discard if you just want to retreat. So I imagine, do we see a switching card? We see an escape rope at the bare minimum.
Got to be a switching card, otherwise you've just got to go. There's a switching card, so that's going to be fine. So it will be able to get out the active if you need it to. This would be, again, you know, had Brennan chosen to go after the Manaphy earlier game, this would be a great opportunity to take down 2 Curlier with a Greninja straight away right here. And that's why that Manaphy is such a big deal. It's why the Manaphy was drawn by Kim so early in the game, because right now that would be a devastating play. As it is, it's off the board. So it does look like we are getting a KO on the Curlier here using Sableye, putting 8 damage counters on, which is going to be enough to KO. And then there's 4 damage counters, which can go somewhere else.
And let's see where these other 4 are going to go. It's really interesting. Go set on a Gardevoir EX. Don't mind that. You know, bringing it into range of a Dragon Gale slowly but surely. And yeah, 1 Curlier gone to the discard pile with 2 energies attached as well, meaning it make it going to be harder for Kim to attack with Brainwave. Because one thing that's good about using Cresselia to accelerate energy, and was this a concession? I think it was it. No. I'm confused. I see a fist bump there. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. So anyway, like I was saying about the Cresselia letting you get energy into play, is it lets you get these Gardevoirs set up without having damage on them, which is really important because Lost Box does not want to be go through tanky one-prize Pokemon. That is not what it's good at doing.
No, that is absolutely not the goal here. I think what we might be seeing from Brennan here is kind of essentially setting up next turn. We did finally see that 4 damage on the Manaphy. I think that was where the fist bump came in. It was just kind of like, I'm changing it to the Manaphy. We cool, and then nice fist bump and carry on with the game. And now Kim's in an awkward position. You kind of want to keep that Curlier on the board as a draw engine. Yeah. But I think it seems pretty obvious what Brennan's going to do next turn is, if there's a Sableye available, KO the Curlier and KO the Manaphy, take a 2-prize turn with no protection for the bench, and basically just ignore Gardevoir EX and go, you know what, can't KO it, not going to KO it. So evolving that to give it some protection, I think, could be quite important. Or you could just kind of bet that actually there's not going to be a second Sableye, but given that Brennan does play one, although there is a Psychic Energy in the Lost Zone and 1 on Sableye, so Brennan only plays 2. Would need to recover 1 to pull that off next turn.
It looks like Kim did opt to evolve that Curlier into the Shining Arcana Gardevoir. I guess you can still just draw 2 cards with that ability as well, and maybe get some extra energy attached as well with that ability. But yeah, you are correct. Brennan would have to play, well, a Clara. I don't know if there's any other option in this list. No, so would have to play a Clara to get back that Psych Energy. And like we saw in one of the games before, where if you can force your opponent to play, you know, a single support that you know that they have to play, right? Like in this scenario, be Clara. It can limit their options, you know, it limits any chances of boss's orders or anything like this. So forcing your opponent to play a certain way.
Could do it with Energy Recycler, but would then have to draw into it. So could put it back into the deck with Energy Recycler, but then, you know, you've got that extra added issue of having to actually draw it once it was back into the deck. So that would still be a little bit of an option. So, yeah, as we're moving on here, we've got Brennan just having a look at a very large discard pile, already seen an awful lot of cards here. And Kim's yet to kind of finish out this turn. We imagine there is going to be a KO on the Sableye. Oh, now this is an interesting one. We see Collapse Stadium coming down. Ooh. And that is actually putting both players to a bench size of 4. And then we see Roxanne, which is going to put Brennan down to a 2-card hand. Yeah. Is there any Comfey on the board right now? Yes, there's 1 Comfey and a Greninja. So not a huge amount of draw options. This Roxanne could be big.
Yeah, Roxanne is so, like, can be catastrophic for the Lost Box decks because they don't have the crazy amount of draw power, you know, Comfey, Colress, but then Colress is your supporter for the turns that limits boss's orders. Then we do see the Shining Arcana there for Kim. I really like this turn, and it also allows Kim to potentially Miriam back in the Manaphy, so then you can get it back in play with no damage on.
Yeah, and that was the big play that came out from the Collapse Stadium. Got rid of the Manaphy because the Manaphy was a really easy target. So now, having evolved the Curlier and gotten rid of the Manaphy, that means that Sableye next turn is really not that much of an issue. And even Radiant Greninja, sure, you can now go and hit the bench. Where are the targets? Yeah. Where are the 90 HP Pokemon that are going to be taken out buy it. So Kim this turn has basically taken all the easy prizes off the board while Brennan is still at 3 prizes remaining. This has been a gigantic turn from Kim, taking off the easy prizes while putting Brennan down to a 2-card hand. It is going to be a long way back for Brennan here. Kim has really, despite being technically behind on prizes, really moved into the driver's seat here.
And we can even see the sort of turns that Kim is potentially lining up with the power pad, shuffling in a Penny and a Roxanne. Basically saying, I'm going to remove damage from play that you put into play, and I'm going to keep giving you a 2-card hand to start your turn. Really, like you said, trying to get into the driver's seat here from that... from the behind position, as it were, and really making life hard for Brennan. And wow, was that escape rope and a heavy ball. Trekking shoes and water energy, both we could argue are really helpful. Getting rid of the trekking shoes so you can discard that with concealed cards. Big 2 cards here. Mirage Gate, interesting.
Depends what you're going to be attacking with, I suppose.
Yeah.
Just to confirm a second ago, the damage never hit the field, but what Kim did on the previous turn was there were 4 different activations of Gardevoir's ability to 4 different Pokemon, each of which took 2 damage, and then moved all 8 of them onto the Sableye. So if it looked a little bit weird, like the Sableye just went away, essentially that was just the players going, we don't need to put all 4 of the 2 lots of damage on, let's just get the KO and move on with our lives. So, I mean, what are we attacking here with, Shay?
It's interesting, like you said, there is no mana fee, so Moonlight Shuriken sounds great, but then like you said, there's no insta-KO targets with this. Sableye would be good, but then there's Psych Energy available to you outside of Recycler and or Clara, so that's not terribly impactful. You could Dragon Gale, but that is really costly for 1 prize, and you're putting 2 damage counters on all your bench Pokemon again. Yeah, quite honestly, I guess... Does a Cramorant KO? Don't forget, does it know Cramorant does not KO this Cresselia? Cresselia is a really beefy Pokemon for Lost Box to deal with. I'm not 100% sure what the correct answer is here. Sableye would be nice, but getting back the energy could be tough.
Yeah, and that's the issue. And we see Brennan deciding there, do I Lost Zone it? Decides to Lost Zone it in the end. And I see the thought process here.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's the double whammy of it's going to be really hard to get the Psychic Energy, and all the easy targets are going to be taken away here. So we do see an escape rope coming down. This could be, says Greninja coming up, and yeah, I thought that was what Brennan was doing. Essentially, seeing what your opponent brings up, and then if you think it's a good enough target, get the Dragonite coming down, get the KO, take the damage, but there's still 2 prizes left to be taken for Brennan, and the easy prizes are starting to disappear.
That's a fantastic way of putting it. The easy prizes are starting to dry up, as it were. We do see the Dragon Gales, that's 2 uses of that, so some of those bench Pokemon now have 4 damage counters on them. Kim promoting, promoting Cresselia, but just thinking about it. And here's the really good thing about multiple uses of Cresselia. Like, look at that Shining Arcana Gardevoir. It's got 3 energy on without any damage on it, so that is perfectly fine to start swinging with its HP of 140. Real big number. We just said how Lost Box struggles to deal with 120. How does it deal with 140 or even 310 on that Gardevoir EX?
Yeah, I kind of like this. Kim's basically had a look and gone, I could potentially really stretch with my non-EX Gardevoir to get a KO on the Dragonite. No, that's probably not going to work. So what you can do here is you can hit with your Gardevoir EX, you do 190, you're not getting a KO. But also, Brennan cannot just get a KO on this 310 HP Gardevoir with no damage. So essentially what you're doing is you're initiating the 2-hit KO, although Brennan is down to 2 prizes remaining, so you cannot let that Gardevoir get KO'd. So you can hit this turn and take a hit, but then you have to make sure you get out of dodge the following turn, because if you give up that Gardevoir, the game will be, forgive the pun here, lost.
There we go. That's a really interesting scenario. So that's going to pay retreat into Shining Arcana Gardevoir. And we could even maybe enter some of the Roxanne here as well, limit the hand size. Like, yeah, Kim is really in the driver's seat, as it were. So let's see. So we're going to see, looks like we're going to see a brainwave there. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So 6 times 30 is 180. Add the 6 is 240.
That's a KO.
Which is a KO. You are 10 over. You are good to go. So that's kind of lovely. So, yeah, that's kind of big. Well, a minute ago I said Kim could potentially stretch to go and get a KO. Has decided they can't. No, they've decided they can. And I think, I mean, if I'm reading this correctly, that's 6 energy. 6 times 30 is 180. Add the 60 base is 240. Against a 230 Dragon, I'm seeing a KO here.
Yeah, that's definitely a KO. And going down to 1 prize card there for Kim, most likely, even removing the Zacian from play, so there's no, you know, squishy Pokemon, as it were. Cresselia only gives up 1 prize, Gardevoir gives up 1 prize, Gardevoir EX gives up 2, but it's at that mammoth 310 HP. And like you said in the last turn, the easy prizes are now pretty much gone, as it were, or at least the impactful prizes.
Yeah.
There we do see Clara, so that does open up the door for Sableye potentially. Not 100% sure if Sableye really gets you out of this scenario with Kim only at 1 prize card left and a multitude of attackers he can use.
I mean, the ideal situation here, Brennan needs to KO that Gardevoir, which is absolutely wreaking havoc with that big attack.
Yes.
But he also needs to do it while ending the turn with a Pokemon that's got 200 HP in the active so that you can survive a hit from Gardevoir EX, who is just going to come and do 190 super duper 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 easily. And actually, Dragonite really fits that bill. Dragonite's gone. Raikou is, I don't know, going to be able to do it here.
That's in the lost zone anyway.
Oh, and it's in the lost zone anyway. And they're really the only 2 Pokemon. Obviously, we said Drapion's in the lost zone as well. So, honestly here, the only route I'm really seeing is trying to get a kick. Because if you don't take out that Gardevoir with all the energy on, Kim's got 1 prize remaining. That's going to win the game next turn. You have to take out that big threat while staying out of range of a Gardevoir EX. So, I think here, I mean, what have we even got? There's a Greninja, but that's not going to get the KO, I don't think. No, you need to do 100. That would be 10 shy. This would actually be a really good time for a Cramorant.
Yeah, I was
if Cramorant had 200 HP.
200 HP Cramorant would be terrifying to think about. But here we do see the Mirage get, it looks like we're setting up, if there was a Kyogre in this deck, we would be talking. But it looks like we are going to, looks like setting up for the Moonlight Shuriken, I should say. So much Moonlight going on with Greninja and Cresselia. And yeah, so what, 90, okay.
Okay, this I like. This is essentially Brennan saying you don't have a switch. You go after both the bench Pokemon, and now this is basically a 1-turn clock. If Kim doesn't have a switch, we're going to get Deja Vu next turn as Brennan does exactly that. KOs the Cresselia and the Gardevoir, but there is an Ultra Ball there, so the energy goes in the discard. The energy comes on with Gardevoir's ability, 190.
Yep.
So one thing we didn't mention there was not enough energy in the discard for Gardevoir to accelerate to itself. That was a great play from Brennan.
Yep.
It didn't work, but that was a great desperation play. Congratulations to Kim for taking down game 1.
Yeah, and that's the sort of plays that the top players will identify. So we always say playing to your outs here in the community. Basically identifying, right, you know, I can't really win by rushing prizes. How can I win? Let me just hope that Kim can't get any more energy in the discard pile. There's so many attached.
Oh, yeah.
And just hope that I can try Moonlight Shuriken again to win next turn. Unfortunately, didn't work in that scenario, and Kim was able to take the win, but that was still a great game 1.
And there are a lot of turns where that works. Bearing in mind, you know, Kim's hand had an Ultra Ball and 2 Psychic Energy, so you use Ultra Ball, discard the energy, and then you can essentially attach them, retreat, attack with Gardevoir, jobs are good, and everybody's happy. That was an option that game.
Yes.
There are many other times we see exactly that happen, and your opponent goes, oh, yeah, I've got no way out of this. And then you can just use Greninja again to win the game. So one of the things to point out when we see these kind of weird desperation plays, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
Yes.
But if it doesn't work, that doesn't make it a bad play.
No.
It's still a really good play. It just so happened that this time your opponent had an out.
Exactly that. And you know what? Like you said, this time it didn't work. There might have been another 3 times where that play did work, and we don't know that, right? And there's a real heads-up play with Gardevoir, because when Gardevoir has all those energies attached, can't really get him in the discard pile, so it can get a bit awkward. Unfortunately for Brendan, did have the Ultra Ball and Psychic Energies in hand, well, Kim did, I should say, but a real heads-up play there. Like I said, didn't work out, but still a fantastic play to find. And like I said, who knows, that might have worked in 9 of over 10 games or however many.
Yeah, great play, great response. And, you know, both players really know what they're doing. We're at 5-1-1, right? And the thing to point out is, we kind of alluded to this, but let's make it explicit. Winner of this game, guaranteed day 2.
Yes.
Winner of this game could lose the next round, and they would end up on 6-2-1, which is the minimum record for making it into day 2. So the winner of this match is guaranteed into day 2. If this ends in a tie, both players have a win and in. A tie will help them in terms of positioning, or if they get into day 2, but it won't actually help them get into day 2. They need a win.
And looking at the prize cards there for Kim, not the greatest. 3 energies and a Rhodes, a Gardevoir, and a Collapse, which are all cards we saw get used in game 1. And then for Brennan, the 1 copy of Raikou V is there. The 1 copy of Boss's Orders is actually there as well. 1 copy of Curlier, and 1 Chorus's Experiment. So not the greatest surprises for both players, really.
No, but they're going to have to navigate around it, unfortunately. Now, Brennan has started with a double Comfey. And speaking of deja vu, Brennan has got the Dragonite down so that you can attach a Forest Seal Stone, so that you can use it on turn 1 to go and search out a Battle VIP pass. The only real difference is I'm not going to suggest using Cramorant on turn 1 going first. Other than that, this is looking very, very similar.
It is, and you know, all in fair play to Brennan, always seemed to work for a lot of times in game 1. You know, Dragonite is really good for just doing that big early damage, but not 100% relevant into Gardevoir most of the time, because Gardevoir, for the most part, is a predominantly a 1-prize deck if it wants to be. Like, it doesn't have to attack with Zation, it doesn't have to attack with the X. It can just throw out Cresselias and or Shining Arcana Gardevoir, right? And Dragonite, not the greatest at dealing with that, but as an activated Forest Seal Stone, very good.
Yeah, and we saw last time it is a very good attacker. You need to time it right. You need to make sure you're getting value in terms of the prizes you're taking before it goes down and gives up 2 prizes. But there's a lot of good stuff you can do with Dragonite before that happens. Now we see another flower selecting here. I believe this is number 3 so far for the turn. And this is absolutely wonderful. I love getting 3 cards in the Lost Zone turn 1, because double flower selecting is pretty easy. Add in a Colrus. Oh, look, you're at 7. Mirage Gate is on board. Brennan getting the treble flower selecting turn 1 makes it quite likely that Mirage Gate could be coming out next turn. Kim knows that as much as what I do, and as much as you do, and as much as everyone else does now. So what can we see turn 1 from Kim?
Well, Kim has an interesting hand, right? You know, has 3 Fog Crystals, but do you know what there isn't in that opening hand? A way to draw cards and no way of finding Manaphy. That means Brennan's Greninja will most likely have free reign next turn to do the Moonlight Shuriken and maybe KO 2 Rolts. This could get dicey. I mean, I could be wrong. Hopefully it gets to look at Kim's hand again, but I did not see any Battle VIP pass. I did not see Level Ball. Oh, I guess you can use the Celebrations Me to maybe try and get there, but yeah, look, that hand is not great. No supporters, no VIPs, no Level Balls. Kim has to get that Manaphy down as soon as possible. Otherwise, Greninja can close this door shot in a ridiculously fast time.
And that's one of the reasons it's so important to get those 3 cards in the Lost Zone turn 1. Try and make sure you've got that map to get to 7 cards nice and quickly, so that plays like those early Greninja can come down. If you go first and you've got a turn 2 Greninja hitting 90 to 2 different Pokemon against an evolution deck, that's basically 2 pre-evolutions, you know, 2 basics that you are going to be taken out. That is going to be extremely difficult for Kim to deal with. And honestly, I said about a tie at the beginning of this game. We've got 15 minutes left. If we're, you know, a couple minutes down the line and all of a sudden Brennan takes this game, we could be heading towards a tie. We're not there yet. What we've actually got is a treble Fog Crystal and a double Routes.
Yep, so, and then we see 1 energy in Kim's hand. That'll be used, I would imagine, to pay retreat on the active Rolt. That'll put Celebrations Mew in the active. Mysterious Tail, look at the top 6 cards, take any item. And Kim will be praying to Arceus himself that there will be a way to get Manaphy, because otherwise this game could get out of hand. Here we go, big 6 here, Mysterious Tail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is there a way to find Manaphy, Ross?
We got it.
There is not.
I'm not seeing it.
No trainers at all.
Oh, wow. There's
no
not even
target.
any options. Oh. And you can
look at Brennan's eyes.
You can see the response from Kim throwing the cards down on top of the deck there. And also, you know, you see the response from Brennan.
Yeah.
These are very, very, very good players. So Brennan's looking at this going, I know he needs Manaphy to stop my Greninja play. I know he's trying to Mew to get the Manaphy. As soon as he whiffs it, both players are like, oh, okay, it's Greninja time.
Yep. And I tell you what, playing against my friend Dimitri Eaton, who plays Gardevoir a lot, I know if there is no Manaphy, you now have free reign to access the bench.
Oh, Mirage Gate is already out here, Shay. We've already got 7 cards in the Lost Zone. Mirage Gate's on the board. We just need an attachment for the turn, and we are there.
Wow, and look, this is the, you see, you give a player like Brennan an opening, he will close that door. Moonlight Shuriken, like I was saying earlier, a ridiculously strong attack. We saw how strong, Brennan's throwing the cards around, can't play them fast enough. We saw how strong this style of attack was on Rapid Strike Urshifu, but doing 90 in most scenarios is better. There's the switching card as well. Kim thinking...
That's everything. That is literally everything
that is everything.
Needs. Oh, I wonder what he's going to go for here.
I guess the Mew's probably always safe. So we're going to see a Moonlight Shuriken. Probably going to get rid of 2 volts. Got to be, right?
There is an argument here that Kim got nothing off of the Mew and seemed to have a pretty bad turn.
Yep.
There is an argument here that you kind of guess that your opponent has a pretty bad hand, and you go after the Mew and one of the routes. Given Kim's last turn, there is an argument for going after the Mew here.
There is.
You don't, you go after the routes. I'm just saying there was an argument to go after the Mew. I'm going routes to routes every time.
What did Kim top deck? Oh, I guess he's got 1 refinement. This is to stay in this game, realistically. Oh, dear, 2 more Pokemon. One of them was a Crescent. There's the concession.
We are done, yes.
Wow.
1 game each. We are going to a game 3. Brennan takes game 2, and I love early concessions.
Yep, 100%.
When you're 1 game up and game 2 is not going well enough, there are 2 options. Hey, there's little enough time remaining that I can ride this out and try and win the match 1-0. And we actually did see that on the stream game that never happened.
Yeah.
Between Pedro and Remy there. We did actually see that happening. Oh, you didn't, I did.
Yeah,
I was the only one that saw it.
We're taking your word for it, to be honest.
I did get to see that, but if it's too long left, you concede as early as you can, because not only does that give you more time, but you're going first in game 3, and for a deck like Gardevoir, that's huge.
100%. That gives you 1 more turn to find the Manaphy, at the very least gives you 1 more turn to evolve faster as well. And I think at the time of concession, there was about 13 minutes left, and that's enough time, I believe. You know, Turbo Lost Box is, you know, it's called Turbo for a reason.
Yeah, it is.
And then we saw Gardevoir pop off in the last round, or a couple of rounds ago. So Gardevoir also capable of going, you know, real popping off and going strong. And here we go, shuffling up for game 3. And like you said, you know, if you win this game, your route into day 2 is much easier. If you don't win this game, your next round is a win or go home scenario, as it were. Both players shuffling up, got their opening hand. Didn't see what Brennan led there. But here we go, Ross. Here we go, game 3, round 7. Oh, round 8, I should say.
It is round 8. Oh,
goodness.
There's Drapion starting off straight away. Worth pointing out, a draw here and a draw next round would put the players onto 18 match points. You need 19 to get into day 2. So a tie here will help you jostle for positioning, but it won't help you get into day 2. A win is everything here. And we do see a battle VIP pass from Kim. And don't be surprised if we see these players starting to play quite a bit faster this game. Also, don't be surprised if we see Kim go for a very quick Manaphy.
Yeah, that was the easiest battle VIP pass. Get that Manaphy straight down into play. Worth noting, Kim's actually prized 2 copies of Curlia and 1 Gardevoir EX, and his only copy of Boss's Orders, I believe. Oh, no, just played 2, sorry. But, you know, 2 Curlia and the Gardevoir EX, not the best prizes. Here we see the Mysterious Tail again. Kim saying, can this Mysterious Tail be good? The answer is no. There was no items in there. That is a badly trained Mew, Ross. That Mew does not want to contribute to this game.
That Mew is not pulling its weight, quite frankly. It's not doing any good here. I mean, at least it's a better start than last time. We've got a double routes down now. We've got the Manaphy there for protection and, crucially, going first. Not the stunning turn 1 Kim was looking for, but all in all, you got multiple routes. You've got the Manaphy. You're going first. You've got a Mew for next turn. That is not a horrendous turn 1. It's not perfect, not horrendous. And now we're over to Brennan. And, you know, we saw last game, getting the free cards in the Lost Zone turn 1, setting up for that turn 2 Mirage Gate was huge. Much harder to do that. However, we could actually see a cheeky Cramorant KO going second.
And that Cramorant would be even stronger if it was mixed in with an escape rope, essentially saying, I'm going to carry your Manaphy or a Ralts, pick one. I know you want to keep them all in play, but escape rope would force one of them into the active. Burden has actually led the Drapion. A card that we said can one-shot a Gardevoir EX. Probably don't want it in the active turn 1, though, so that would have to be a escape rope, switch card, any of this to get it out of the active. But Burden already has 2 cards in the Lost Zone, hasn't even started flower selecting yet.
No, got that Chorus's experiment nice and early. So here you're trying to flower selecting a couple of times. You're working towards having a Cramorant in the active position. And like you say, an escape rope to force a bell. Oh, straight away we've got that escape rope. And it is the Manaphy coming active. So that kind of gives Brennan his first couple of turns if he's able to do so. If you can get a Cramorant KO on the Manaphy and then get a Radiant Greninja next turn onto a double Curlier, for instance, that would be a very strong couple of turns for Brennan here.
That would be a potentially game-winning. Oh, we're going to see. Is this a scratch?
I think it's
going to be a.
Oh, that is not what we were looking for.
Kim's face. Kim's thinking I got away with that one there. If it scratches, what, 1 for 20? I don't get to say that one too often. But I guess Brendan. No, right. Can't not sure he can next turn because the Manaphy is still around. Here we do see a refinement, which is good because Kim did prize 2 Curlier and has got 1 into play. Very nice. And Brendan must be thinking, oh, Sableye, where's Cramorant? I guess he only had 3 cards in the Lost Zone as well.
Kim got away with that there. If we had seen a Cramorant onto the Manaphy, followed by a Greninja turn 2, that would have put Brendan in a very commanding position. So Kim's got to be feeling a little bit fortunate here that they avoided that eventuality. So it does look like we've got at least 1 more Routes in hand. There's no... We've got a Gardevoir, no Curlier, unfortunately. Oh, wait, no, 1 Curlier. I'm lying to you. There is 1 on the bench.
Yeah, 1 Curlier via normal evolution, and then that Shining Arcana Gardevoir got Rare Candied.
I know.
Not something you see too often. Normally see the Rare Candy into the EX, but it can work on that as well. Let's see what this Lumineon targets. Lumineon sign, letting you grab any supporter from your deck when you bench it. Or is that a penny? Got to try and remove damage from the Manaphy, maybe?
Could potentially go for the penny. We've got an Irida we're looking at here as well, potentially. I think that was an Irida.
Yeah, it was. There is a...
No, I'm not going crazy. There is an Irida. Gets you a water Pokemon and an item, but of course that water Pokemon can be Manaphy, which is absolutely huge in some matchups. Could also be the Lumineon or the Greninja, so there are plenty of good options to make that Irida a pretty good choice. But if I'm Kim here, I just want to be drawing cards. Like, that's my goal here. I'm not really putting any pressure on, so I want to be drawing a bunch of cards. And hey, Greninja and Fog Crystal, that's a good way to draw cards. And then that Fog Crystal turns into an energy.
Yeah, so getting you set up there, getting the Greninja saying, well, your Greninja's not showing up, but mine is, though. So let me get mine down and start drawing cards. Conceal cards is like, when you think about it, the perfect synergy for a Gardevoir deck. You want to get energy in the discard pile. So how about you discard them and draw 2? Here we see Mysterious Tail. Can we get a trainer off this Mew?
Nice.
Oh, plenty of trainers to pick from there. We see Level Balls, Ultra Balls, Fog Crystals. I think does Fog Crystal seem like the most one? I think that's the one I'd be taking most likely.
Fog Crystal's always a nice one. Of course, it is worth reminding ourselves, Mew can only go and get item cards, and we did have that rule there a little while ago, the rule change that tools are no longer item cards, so things like that Forest Seal Stone are not valid targets off of Mew like they would have been before Scarlet and Violet released.
Yeah, it also means you can't Irida in the same way for a tool card anymore, which was used a lot of times back in the day in Astral Radiance format. Powercube would love to grab Choice Belt with Irida, but that is not the case anymore. Looks like Kim does take the Ultra Ball there, gets down to the Ralts, and then also, and obviously a pass over. This is what Brandon can manufacture, because you don't really want to be doing scratch anymore, so let's see what he can cook up. Open the turn with a Chorus.
Yeah, Chorus is nice here, getting a couple extra cards into the Lost Zone, couple extra cards into your hand. I'm still a little bit haunted by how good last turn could have been for Brennan, and just falling that little bit short. So now, I mean, you can Cramorant for some prizes. I actually quite like the idea of starting to spread some damage around here with Sableye. Try and maybe Sableye 2 turns in a row, start trying to take out some of those routes or force them to evolve into Gardevoir, and Curlier as well. But then if they do evolve into Gardevoir, they've still got that damage on, which could potentially kind of get you closer to a KO. The problem is, it is starting to get a little bit more awkward. Last turn for Brennan, it was obvious what the best play was. I'm not sure that's really the case here. So it's playing escape rope. I don't know, maybe we'll get some clarity after this.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal scenario, Lost Mine would be great, but Brennan still needs to get 5 more cards in the Lost Zone, so can get to that with copies of Lost Vacuum, but 2 are actually prized, so we have to find his last copy of Lost Vacuum to help get there, or Convey's going wild, as it were.
Indeed. Now, the Luminion has gone into the active here. Worth pointing out, Luminion is weak to lightning, and there is a Raikou V in Brennan's deck. So you could basically start a 2 versus 2 prize race here where you KO the Luminion with your Raikou, and sure, you go down as well, but you've at least got yourself ahead on prizes, taken the first KO there. That is an option to take out Luminion, and it's about the only one I think we're going to have in the short term. Or Brennan could just go, you know what, keep your Luminion in the active, I'm using Sableye.
Yeah, that is, and there is. We could even see the Dynamic Tail potentially as well. That would KO Luminion or Dragonite again. But Raikou would be the most efficient. I mean, requiring 2 energies. Here we see a Nest Ball. Still needs to get 1 more card in the Lost Zone to actually activate those Mirage Gates. So here look like we might just be seeing a Cramorant here with that ability letting you attack for no energy. If you got 4 cards in the Lost Zone, Brennan does have 6. So that means you can use Spit Innocently for no energy cost and do 110 damage.
I'm not loving this if it's just to Spit Innocently to get some damage on Luminion. Sure, it means that they're set up for a Sableye KO later on down the line, but I mean, I'm not saying there is a better play available for Brennan right now. What I'm saying is, it's turn 2. This is not what you're really looking to do. Luminion is not a priority target. You're not getting a KO. It's probably going to go back to the bench and force some kind of Sableye response if you're going to get a KO. That is not really what Brennan wanted to do on turn 2 of this game.
No, especially since Kim is currently holding the Collapse Stadium, so we could just see it attach energy, pay retreat, Collapse Stadium, discard it, in which case your Cramorant now has just, all its damage has been removed from play. Not the greatest. But I have to imagine Brennan did have, I should say, the copy of Forest Seal Stone available, so could have maybe opted to use that to maybe get to 7 in Lost Zone, but opted not to. And who am I to question Brennan Cameron, one of the premier players in the EU?
Yeah, absolutely. As fun as Sableye would have been last turn as well, you need 10 in the Lost Zone, so that wasn't happening. You weren't getting 10 in the Lost Zone last turn, so I think Cramorant probably was the best option available given the cards in hand. My point was purely just that is not what you really wanted to do. That was not the ideal scenario. So retreat into Mew. Is Mew finally going to start earning? It did do a little bit last turn.
It did, but there we do see the Collapse Stadium removing Luminion and all the damage. So look at Brennan's face. I wish that didn't happen. Here is Mysterious Tail, Ultra Ball or Fog Crystal target. Probably, I don't know, is Ultra Ball better here? I'm not sure. Fog Crystal gets energy, which is never a bad thing in Gardevoir decks. And yeah, looks like we see the Fog Crystal. But if I'm Brennan now, seeing that Collapse Stadium, I'm thinking, oh my goodness gracious. I wish that Luminion was still in play, because that also benchmarks Brennan now as well.
And not only that, but if this Collapse Stadium goes away, look what Kim just went and got. We just went and got that Zacian coming out there. So that is going to be a potential attacker down the line as well.
Yeah.
So we do actually see Greninja hitting the discard. No, we don't. We almost saw Greninja in the discard pile. We've changed our mind at the last moment here. Oh, it's a penny, and I love this because that opens up a bench space for Zacian if you so wish. We do see an Ultra Ball coming down here. That's going to be for a Gardevoir EX, and we've still got Zacian in hand.
Wow, and there we see the rare candy as well. Zacian coming down. Psychic Embrace, allowing you to attach Psychic energies from your discard pile to your Psychic Pokemon. As many as you like, as often as you like. You have to put 2 damage on the Pokemon. So here we go. So you can see 2 to retreat to the Gardevoir, and it's going to get reattached to Zacian. Storm Slash for a big KO here. Brennan only has 1 Comfey in play.
Yeah, I love that. And we saw, of course, the thing with Gardevoir is it is as often as you like during your turn. So that all happened quite quickly. Seems like we've changed our mind here. Seems like we have instead got free energy on the Gardevoir, hitting 190 on the Cramorant. But of course, Gardevoir is as often as you like during your turn, so you absolutely can attach the energy, use them to retreat, and then reattach them to another Pokemon as we initially saw Kim do there. That is something you can do with Gardevoir, which is wonderful.
It is. Like once you're a Gardevoir deck, if you've got like, I don't know, 8 to 10 energy in the discard pile, you basically say whatever I want to do, I can do. Like, I want to attack with this turn, I can do that. Oh, hold on. Oh, is that another fist bump? Okay. I keep seeing the fist bumps and yeah, it looks like I think they're fine. I see a Draconite flying around. What's going on? I see a Zacian. I see energies.
Oh, time has been called. So I think this is a discussion of essentially, can the game end? That's what we're always looking at when time is called between two players. Can the game end? And I think the decision here was, nah, mate.
Yep.
So it seems like we are ending in a tie here between Kim and Brennan. It looks like we are going to end up in a 1-game-to-1 tie. That was shaping up to be a really interesting game for Shay, and unfortunately, we've been a little bit robbed. We went to time. And we never got to see how that would play out. But yeah, it's always a little bit weird if you're not keeping one eye on the clock. You see players showing those cards and fist bumping. You're like, what's actually happening?
What's going on here? What have I missed? But yeah, I think you're right. Basically trying to say that, can you take these prizes fast enough? And the answer is no. Can you take the prizes fast enough? No. Well, let's not waste any more time. Let's just sign these match slips and get moving to our next round. But like you said, I think we were unfortunately a bit robbed of seeing an absolute masterclass in that game 3. Either player I should say, was in a commanding position. So that's where these sort of chess matches tend to come out there. Like, you know, I'm going to do X, you can do Y, and all that good stuff. But fantastic play from both players, I think.
Yeah, and we see Gardevoir coming out nicely as well. Gardevoir we've seen doing quite well at this tournament so far. Gardevoir has been showing up. But it is really interesting. We've said this before, and we need to say it again. That result didn't help either player. Now, if they get into day 2, yay, they've got an extra match point to go into day 2. If they don't make day 2, yay, they've got an extra match point, which might put them in a slightly higher bracket in terms of championship points, etc. But it doesn't help them actually get into day 2. Both these players are now going to go into round 9 as a winning in, and it's really simple. If they win next round, guaranteed day 2. If they lose or draw, guaranteed out.
Yeah, and that's what it all comes down to, that round 9. Round 9 in a regionals, you can cut the atmosphere with a knife. All the players that are still playing are all jostling for their day 2 placements. You even got players like we saw with Bolly on the interview on the floor earlier, basically saying, I'm currently out of record, I'm safe for day 2, but I'm playing about anyway. I don't want these ties. I want the wins so I can get as far as I can in day 2, where all those match points matter, and both those players we just saw will be jostling for their day 2 placement in the next round.
And it makes a difference. It makes a difference in 2 ways. Firstly, if you can guarantee day 2 before round 9, it takes the pressure off. That is lovely. But secondly, it also means that you can go into round 9, and if you don't win, it's fine, nobody cares. But if you do win, that's 3 more match points, and records carry over into day 2. We are not starting a new tournament. We're not starting on equal footing. If you are one of the top seeds, you genuinely just have to do not as well to make top 8 tomorrow. It is a huge, huge difference. The day 2 that I made many years ago, I cut right at the bottom of the players, and I had to go like 4-1 in day 2 in order to get into top 8. That makes a huge difference. We've seen some players go like 2 wins in day 2 and then be like, a couple of ties, I'm good to go. That makes such a difference. You know, our lovely co-caster Joe went 9-0 at Liverpool. I think it was Liverpool.
It was.
Joe went 9-0, and if you go 9-0 day 1, you're in such a position you don't need to do that well in day 2 to get into top 8, and then you lose in top 8 because, you know, curse of the first. But that's not the point. It gives you an easier route in.
Yeah, and like you said, it makes such a difference if you have to try and win, you know, 4 or 5 against a day 2 field where it's going to be traditionally the better players. Let's look at the live standings. Speaking of 9-0s, Leon, a person we spoke to in the interview, 7-0. Wow.
Yeah, that is quite fantastic. Now, what we do see here is we've got a lot of players. Now, this is before the previous round, I should say. That's why we got 7 rounds. But we've got Leon and Mateus there at 7 wins, which is fantastic. Pedro Eugenio Torres, who, of course, we saw on this fabled stream game that never happened, sitting there at 6-0-1 in 4th place, which is fantastic. Hedy there at 6-1, who we did get to speak to as well, which was fantastic. The well-known Stefan Ivanov, 5-0-2, currently undefeated. There's some big names currently sitting there.
Yeah, Joe Bates, who we had in as well for the interview.
Oh, of course.
It says that basically I need to have a wonder run to get my invite, and so far at 6-1, you could argue is having that wonder run. Hopefully nothing sabotages that. But I'm looking all the way at the top of those 7-0s. If you're at 7-0, you might as well you just keep playing, right? There's no reason.
Oh, yeah.
There's no reason. So do you think we could see the fabled 9-0?
I love seeing a 9-0, and that's the thing. Under some old formats, yes, you would get to 7 wins and be like, I'm in, I'm good. In day 2, we see this happening as well. When players are locked for top 8, you can kind of just stop.
Yeah.
But in day 1, it's so good. Essentially, you know, Leon and Mateus, they are the only 2 players who are locked. Oh, that's a lie, because Vianney and Pedro and Zhao are also locked as well.
This is true.
Those 2 7-0s, they're already locked for day 2. But that just means that if they win rounds 8 and 9 today, they are essentially day 2 wins without having to even, you know, go to bed and get up tomorrow and go into day 2. That is a gigantic advantage.
Yeah, it is, like you said, because in day 2, you're not going to get any easy wins for the most part. You're dealing with players that have already filtered through the day 1. You don't get any easy. Everyone's going to be at the top of their game with, you know, the correct deck choices and correct card count. So, like you said, sometimes you need to win 4 or 5. If you can make that win 2 or 5, maybe even 1 or 5, if you go 9-0, it makes it much, much easier.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. I mean, that was a very good game. It was a very long game, though. We went to time. I think we need a tiny little bit of a break here, Shay. Plus, of course, we do need to bring Mike and Alex back to take us through the final round. So go and grab yourselves a nice cold beverage. But don't go far, because we've got round 9, and you know round 9 is going to be the best round.
Win and in action. Make sure you come back as soon as possible.